So, gut, fear, love, processes, decide, right? The energy that we're working with there is instinct, that we're calling it tonight. Brain, head, processes, intelligence. Its energy is to differentiate, and its goal is to differentiate for clarity and application. Heart is where our intuition resides in this model that we're proposing to you, right? What is intuition? What's the way that we can kind of distill it down to something functional and workable, like we did with instinct, and like we just did with intelligence? Okay? So it's sort of a. I wish I had to come up with it because it's so brilliant, but it's a not corny, I guess, but a cliche sort of way to look at intuition, and it's to break down the word into its syllables and kind of literally translate what they mean. So when we talk about intuition, literally we're talking about into it, right? And what does that suggest? At least to our minds, it suggests, okay, well, if I want to know something further than I know it, or I want to get information from it, I've got to look into it. Right? What does that mean? What does that sort of suggest? We defined emotion as being that sort of raw primal energy that exists in the gut, right? The biggest emotions being love and fear. We could say that the gut is kind of a, and Carl could back this up with Chinese medicine as well too, which is really fascinating. It starts to tie together. We could describe the gut as being hot, right? It's fiery. It's got that immediacy of move forward, back away, and it hits us with an energy that has velocity to it, right? The other thing about the gut, and we're just going to touch base on this before we really dive into defining intuition and what the heart does, is that the gut usually operates on things from the past. That's how it processes. It logs the different experiences, and then it compares them and says, okay, we'll make this blunt decision that this thing that you're facing now, that you're afraid of it because it's reminding you of something that you've already been hurt or injured by, right? So we can say that it's a hot energy and it operates in the past, right? The head is a cool energy and operates in the future, right? So that's where those harmonics of anxiety and fear come into play, because the raw primal emotion and energy of the gut is fear. The head is cool. It's quieter until it gets revved up and out of control, right? Which we can all feel like sometimes, I'm sure. Overthinking. Well, what are we doing there? We're anticipating a future outcome, and we're trying to calculate all of the difference, and there's that differentiation again, of how something could possibly go in the future. So that's what our head does. It's projecting into the future. It's thinking about all possible outcomes. Okay, but it's disconnected from anything that has to do with where we're going to land now, which is what the heart does. And the heart's kind of like literally in the body, the junction between your gut and your head. So if we think about the energy of the heart being intuitive, right, we again kind of play with that suggestion of, okay, well, let's look at the word, into it. The heart's process, okay, if the gut's to decide, the head's to differentiate, the heart's process is to discern. Right? And what's discernment mean? What's different than deciding or differentiating about discernment? In discernment, if we really look at the definition of the word, it has to do with being able to look at something and know something about it without directly experiencing the effect of it, right? So in other words, we can get a feeling for something by looking into it, right? So that's why we can say comfortably in this model that, okay, the human emotion really, if we're using the specific word emotion, which just because I'm a word nerd, translates from the Latin literally as energy in motion, right? The gut decides when we move forward, when we pull back. That's motion. It's energy that moves us. If that works, and we can hold that up under application in this model that we're suggesting, then everything else that we experience, like embarrassment, anxiety, excitement, elation, despair, hopefulness, we could all describe those as feelings. Right? They're feelings. Those are the feelings that we have that are the shadings of the space between love and fear. Right? They're all the little stops along the way, all the decimal points, right? Between the one end of the continuum being love, total openness, complete vulnerability, move forward to it, it's going to be pleasurable, and fear, shut down, introversion, pull away because it's going to be dangerous. So if we combine some of those possibilities, well then our heart is the home of our intuition. That's the energy that drives our heart and is the energy that goes through the process of discernment, right? We can look at something and go, oh, I've had that gut reaction. That feels kind of scary. I should probably make sure that this thing that I'm thinking about, right, that differentiation that I'm looking at, isn't the same thing that hurt me from the past. Almost the tiebreaker becomes our intuitive power and energy. If we look into that thing, right, and discern it, what we're going to get is a self-evident truth, right? And that's what we're going to call the result of our intuition, because we can look at something and go, well, I don't have the direct experience of this thing right in front of me, whatever it happens to be, object, person, situation, but I have a feeling about it.